Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Friday, September 5th. Derek Van Riper, Eno Saris, Britt Giroli here with you on this episode. It's a spring training style episode for me. I am on the road. I am holding my mic by hand. I'm using a folding table to prop up my laptop, and my internet feels like it's going to conk out at any minute. So we'll see how far we can get today. But on this episode, we will discuss some news and notes from around the league, including the Yankees' request to have the umpires inspect and eventually confiscate the bat of Taylor Trammell on Thursday night. So we'll dig into that. Our big topic today is looking at the Mariners. Are they as safe as the math says, or are things actually wobbling and trending in the wrong direction here now that we're into September? We'll take a look at the AL wildcard race. And of course, we'll have a little bit of a weekend waiver preview later on in the episode as well. Britt, welcome back. Good to have you back on the show.
I know. It's good to be back. Our schedules have not aligned, but I am here. I am ready for the stretch run, not sure where or if and when I'm going to the playoffs. So excited to continue to talk baseball with you guys.
Well, I thought the interesting thing about the game last night was going to be just some injury updates on Jazz Chisholm, which we'll start with those because those we'll just get out of the way right away. Day-to-day with 2 knee contusions. That's 1 contusion in each knee, not 2 contusions in the same knee. What do you think's worse? Do you think it's better to have a contusion left and right, or just like upper and lower around the knee in the same one?
Yeah, balance it out. At least you won't do one of those things where you're limping on one side and you strain the other side because you're limping on one side. At least you're limping on both sides.
Yeah, this one's up there kind of with the Giancarlo Stanton double tennis elbow from earlier in the season.
It reminds me a little bit of the Carl Pavano strained buttocks too.
Did he have left and right, or do you have upper and lower?
No, I don't. They didn't clarify. It just, the thing about Jazz is he's been so good, and when you look at last 162, it's like he's like a 6-win player with 35 homers and 20 steals, and you're like, geez, that's a superstar. And then you look at what he actually does, and you're like, oh man, he's just always down with something for a while. He gives you 2/3 of a great season every year.
Yeah. I mean, to a lesser extent, I hear knee contusion, and for some guys, they're going to keep playing. It's a knee bruise. For other guys, Mike Trout had it and missed a ton of time too. It just, speaking of a guy who can't stay on the field, right? So it just kind of
it's a question
depends.
of it's a bone bruise or not,
Yeah, and it's a question of how much it hurts, where it is exactly, right? Can, I think, play a lot of factors in this. I think I'd rather have them on the same leg because you're rehabbing that leg anyway. At least you have a good leg to kind of hobble around or put your weight on for a little while. But if they both hurt, how are you getting around?
Yeah.
Are you wheeling it in the wheelchair? Are you using crutches? And if you're using crutches, what legs up, right? They both hurt the same. I think I'd rather just have a concentrated one leg injury. If this was hockey, we wouldn't even know. It'd be lower body injury.
Oh, yeah, somewhere down there.
Yeah, I am grateful
or
that
the Astros.
I'm so grateful.
Same thing.
We're avoiding the hockey injury designations in baseball so far. Hopefully, it continues that way. But to Eno's point, you look at the past calendar year: Jazz Chisholm, 30 homers, 34 steals. That's a great player, 30-30 player playing good defense at second base too, back to a more familiar position. I saw someone on our Discord pointing out this Yankees team loaded with 20 home run hitters. And, you swooped in and said, amazing that one of them is not Jason Dominguez, just based on the expectations we had for him coming into the season.
If you told me that the team would be this good offensively, I would have just assumed that him and Volpe were doing great, But you're getting really good contributions from Trent Grisham. Ben Rice stepped forward. Austin Wells, 20 home run hitter. So, just the fact that some of their young guys step forward. And long term, it was a little bit of a joke. But long term, he's still 22, Jason Dominguez, and he's a league average player right now. So, his defensive issues aside, I remain somewhat optimistic about him. Although I think I doubt at this point that there was Trout level ceilings put on him at times.
What?
Yeah, I mean, when he was coming up, he was the thing. You don't remember the Martian?
That's a dangerous scene to put on someone. That guy was a Hall of Famer by the time he was 27.
Right, and so that's why I say it's been bad and I still think he can be like an above average player, but like the top seed, like if he was going to be a future Hall of Famer, he's going to be a Trout type. I think he would have done something more by now.
Oh, Trout in his rookie year got MVP consideration, finished second. So I think that there is.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you use as his rookie year. Like his debut year wasn't that great, but that was
11. Yeah, but by rookie eligibility, he was rookie in 12, won unanimously. Yeah. Got 6 of the votes. Miguel Cabrera won that year, the Triple Crown. So, I think you look at what he did. He was a Silver Slugger that year. He also won a fielding Bible. Like, that's a dangerous comparison to make, I think, to anyone.
Oh, but anyone, but that's like what we do with top prospects.
I know. But can we comp him to like a regular all-star? Like you're not looking like generational players. It's like looking at others drafted. It's like, that guy's gonna be the next Cal Ripken, the next Ken Griffey Jr. Like, why are we putting a noose around these people? Like,
always like Griffey, dude.
Or if it's a high school lefty that goes in the first round, Clayton Kershaw. It's Clayton Kershaw. Yeah. Probably not another Clayton Kershaw.
Can we just compare them to like regular average Joe big leaguers, which is still incredible and still better than most of us can actually do, right? I always just hate the comps that are like
base comps. That's what we want.
Yes.
How about a funny comp for Jason? Jesus Sanchez?
See, it's funny because then it becomes disappointing right away if it's based.
Yeah.
There's no hype. There's no juice.
No.
There's no reason to trade for those players and keep her in dynasty leagues. You just say, okay, someone else can have them.
Speaking of the Yankees' power, though, they're coming up on, they have a chance to break the Twins record, don't they? That was in the 19 Twins, the Bomba squad, right? Yeah. They're like right there. The main issue with the Yankees and their offense and just the Yankees in general has always been like, they're not super well-rounded, right? They're not a particularly adept team at like keeping the strikeouts low, putting the ball in play. Fundamentally, they're not that sound, but they do hit a lot of home runs, which some teams don't. We'll get to those teams later. That's an issue too, especially in the way the game is structured nowadays. You have a team that can hit home runs. They're never truly out of the game, right? Like you can very quickly make up 3, 4, 5 run deficits if you've got that many guys that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. So there is like a little bit of an upside to an offense that's constructed that way. It also can be maddening. And obviously Yankees fans would be the first to tell you that there's been maddening stretches, but I don't know how you guys feel about that division. It feels like nobody wants to win that division. Like,
I feel like 3 teams want to win it. I feel like it's a legit good race right now. And
it's not though, because like Toronto probably should have ran away with that race. Like none of these teams are going to be like, wow. And you can look at a couple divisions that are like this, and we'll get to the West a little bit.
I don't even think Toronto. I mean, like when I look at the Toronto rotation, that came up. I didn't know whether in my article today when I was ranking rotations, I didn't know if I put them like 11 or 10. Yeah. Like I did not. They ranked 12th by my projections. So that's not a Toronto team without its own issues.
Yes. But that's what I mean. Like there's no like one team that like. You're like, this team's winning the AL East, right? Like we know what teams are playoff teams, but a lot of the divisional races are still very much like, who wants this one? Like, well, you know what I mean? Like, is it going to take if it's taking like 88 wins to win a division, I'm just not super impressed. That to me is a division that nobody wants to win. It's a division where teams are very flawed and someone's going to stumble in. And that's how I feel about the AL West as well. Like, somebody come on. It's not like anyone has made a run because they've been playing out of their minds. No, you've got teams that are not playing well, allowing everybody else to get in. So it's kind of the opposite of what I want to see this time of year, right? You're not seeing a team that's like red hot. Like we could talk about Tampa Bay. They've been 3 games over 500. It's not like they've gone and won 19 of 20 to get back in this thing, right? Like, so to me, like that's what I mean by like no one wants to take this. No one is playing particularly well where we're like, wow, here they go now on this run. So a lot of
that's
teams
what I was saying when I earlier this week. I said there wasn't like a person that wasn't in the playoffs that I wanted to put my arms all the way around. And by the way, the update is on the Yankees. They are on pace for 279 homers. That would put them 5th all time behind 3 teams from 2019, which actually makes it a little bit more impressive because 2019 was a juice ball year. Just to say that. But yeah, I mean, I've been watching some of the Rays, the Rays Mariners series. I watched a lot of, and that was interesting because it was a team that's in the playoffs that the projections all say should make it to the playoffs, and they just got trucked by the Rays.
Well, the Mariners are just a weird team, though, because on paper, by computer, they should easily be that last playoff team. They could still win the West. They're 3.5 back of the Astros. That lead just feels like it doesn't get bigger and it doesn't get smaller. It just sits right around that sweet spot. And as time passes, eventually that becomes more of a problem, but there's still enough time left. They could certainly turn that around. The Mariners are weird because they don't do all of the things you would expect them to do. We talk a lot about that ballpark, how it plays, what makes it unique, right? It suppresses offense, boosts their pitching. But I think we all look at their pitching and say, it's actually good pitching. It's good pitching in a good park. And maybe there's something that's more difficult about moving in and out of Safeco, similar to the Coors effect, that we just don't give them enough credit for collectively. And the thing that really surprises me when I look at this Mariners team, for all the questions people had about the makeup of their lineup earlier in the year, when Julio got off to another slow start, clearly a guy that's had a lot of great second halves over the course of his career. It was kind of the Cal Raleigh show earlier in the year. And our questions were, will the secondary supporting cast be there in time for this team to be really good in the second half and possibly make a deep playoff run? I think as long as they get there, they could still be a really dangerous playoff team. I think they're built for it, and they have more power than expected. That's the thing that continues to surprise me with the Mariners. Like, sure, Cal's having the phenomenal season, but there's actually power behind him. Like, you could take Cal Raleigh's total off of the Mariners, and they've still hit more homers than I think 7 or 8 teams in baseball, which is actually pretty impressive for a team that has a 50 homer guy and has this reputation for being so dependent upon what he's done so far this year. So some of this is just recent form hasn't been good. Tyler Kepner had a little factoid. There's a piece on The Athletic about the concerns of all the playoff teams. It's a great thing to read. If you're a fan of those teams and you just want to worry for the next month about your team falling apart and or not being good in October, like, read that. Vibes are immaculate. We pointed this out. Mariners have a 4.69 road ERA entering play Thursday. Yeah. Only the Angels, Marlins, Nats, and Rockies are worse. It's just weird. And I think that only happens when you are in an environment that is just good at helping you when you're at home and makes things more difficult when you're on the road. So do you think we should give the Mariners more of a level of understanding akin to the Rockies, given the way T-Mobile plays as a ballpark and given the impact it has on their performances?
Well, I mean, the road ERA doesn't surprise me because their road record is terrible. I think there's 7 or 8 games under 500 on the road. So there is something to, they can't get it done outside of Seattle. That is a little troubling on one hand. On the other, are we just looking at the small sample size that is this season? Because, obviously this team and Mariners fans who are listening are very long suffering. In my opinion, one of the biggest suffering fan bases there are, because every year it feels like they do this, right? They collapse, or, I think last year in June, they had like a 10-game lead. Like, every year, it seems like they don't do enough to get it done. I do think they go to the playoffs this year. But there has been seasons where, when their pitching was really good and they just need a little offense, right? Do we think that would have mattered, that Safeco plays a little differently? That, that year the pitching was out of this world, and that wasn't just at Safeco, right? They were just good everywhere. So I think it's a little bit of like recency bias if we look at that. I do think it's a unique park, but every park is unique. Every team tries to structure their team around the stadium and how it can help. I don't think, for me, we have to look at it as, well, they're not going to, even if they make the playoffs, they can't win outside of Safeco Field. Like, I think they have the potential to figure it out. I think that there are additions to the offense. You would like Eugenio Suarez to do a little better. Naylor's been pretty good. But I don't want to just pin this on, well, Safeco's weird, so, it's not nearly as weird as playing at altitude. The Rockies, to me, are just in another class of weirdness. The air is different. Everything about that area is different. The ball travels different. Players talk about it being a hellacious place to play. I mean, if we're going to talk about places that are different, they're not the only ones. Let's talk to the Rays about playing at Steinbrenner Field. Like, let's talk to Oakland about playing in Sacramento. Like, let's talk about, remember Tropicana Field? Well, no matter what, the ball hit some weird catwalk, it was a double or an out. Like, as a beat writer for, 10, 12 years, I can't even remember how long I was on the beat now. Every park had these like weird little different things. Like, wasn't it Houston? You had to run up the hill to catch a ball somewhere, right? Like, so yeah, it matters. But to me, like, that's not why they've been erratic. That's not why they haven't been good. That's not why they haven't been able to get it together on the road. I'd be curious, Derek. I don't know if you looked at this, but like the last few years, have they been a markedly terrible team on the road compared to home? Is it a sample size of like 5 or 10 years? I don't know, honestly. I would be.
The ERA definitely changes. I mean, last year they were 18th in ERA on the road.
Okay.
And in 23, they were 12th in ERA on the road. So
was that the year they were really good?
Yeah. I mean, that was the year that I think they were
like
without a split. They had the third best staff in baseball, and like by a sliver. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think what it does is it affects us when we are trying to assess them. Maybe we give their team too much credit because, like, for example, I was looking at best bullpens, and at one point I said, okay, who has the best projected ERA in the bullpen? And Seattle came up number 1. And I immediately was like, well, that was a surprise because I wouldn't say they're the number 1 bullpen. And I said, this is probably a park factor situation. So I tried to move away from that and ended on settling on the Padres as the best bullpen, but the Mets being close. I mean, that hasn't played out so great since, but I think Ryan Helsley will figure it out someday. But anyway, what the point is, the Mariners, you have, like, you think of them a certain way, and I think that includes their home ERA, and they're somewhere in between. Here's another way of looking at it. So I looked at the playoff rotations this like going forward. This is basically they take the top 3 starters. You take the top 3 starters, and you do their projections, and this is what it spits out. Now, this is with playoff teams in. If you're looking at the numbers on the left, that's where they are in the Fangraphs depth chart with a slightly different method. So this is if you shrunk everybody's rotation to 3 starters, who would do better and who would do worse. So as you can see, the Brewers and Braves move up pretty high in this because you're leaving away some of their 4th and 5th starters who aren't that good. By including non-playoff teams, you get the Pirates and Reds as the 3rd and 4th best playoff rotations in baseball. So I feel like they're a little bit more dangerous if they can ever get in. And lo and behold, there are the Mariners now 7th by this measure.
Yeah. And Tigers.
So, I think what you want to say is among playoff teams, they may have a below average rotation. Now, what they do have, though, before we get to the playoffs, is they have 5 really good starters. And they can use that even in the playoffs, when Bryce Miller and whoever it is, maybe Luis Castillo coming out of the pen.
Yeah.
So they're going to be able to use that in the playoffs. And having 5 good starters is a real good benefit. Because when you're looking at the schedule, yes, they just got trucked by the Rays. And they're going into Atlanta. But they're going to have, I think, the pitching advantage very clearly, at least in one game. And Gilbert versus Sale is going to be great. I think I would take Bryce Miller over Hurston Waldrop right now. And in that last game, Luis Castillo, Spencer Strider, I think that's almost a wash at this point because both of those guys aren't exactly who they normally are. So, by having this depth, when they go into St. Louis, it's Wu against Michaelis, Kirby against Liberatore, Gilbert against McGreevy. Like, they should have a clear advantage, and the game odds for those are that they should win those games 68 to 70% of the time.
Yeah.
So I think 2 things are going on. Maybe we overvalue Mariners pitching because of the park situation, and maybe they just hit a part of the schedule where it was 50-50 games that they lost. Like, for example, the odds in the Rays games, 53%, 49%, 57%. So those were more 50-50 games. They lost them. They're coming into a stretch where they're going to have some more, games against the Rockies and stuff where they're 70% favored to win.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the playoff odds are spitting out the way they are. That's why they still are the favorites to make it in. But you can lose games you're favored to win 70% of the time too.
Yeah, and I guess that's where the worry would come in on a team that has a 75.6% chance of making the playoffs, according to Fangraphs. Like, 3 out of 4 times we make it. 1 out of 4 times we don't. And we're 6-14 in our last 20. So, maybe we're trending toward one of those 1 out of 4 outcomes of not making it. But as we talked about the power earlier, this was another nugget I saw in that same piece about the flaws of playoff teams. This was a interesting Andy McCullough tidbit. Each of the last 5 World Series champs have finished the regular season in the top 4 in home runs as a team. So this year's top 4 as a team, not a surprise to see the Yankees number 1. We just talked about them a few minutes ago. The Dodgers are 2. The Mariners are 3. Hit 200 home runs as a team. And again, I mentioned earlier, take Cal Raleigh's homers off there, and they're still not even at the bottom of the league. They'd be low. They'd be bottom 3rd, but they wouldn't be horrendous without him because they do have other contributors. They made the trades for Suarez and Naylor. Julio's looking like Julio again. So there's just a lot of things going better for them in that regard than people expect. The hilarious thing, 4th in homers, the Angels. Probably not a playoff team. So the teams that could catch them, Mets and Cubs are the other 2 playoff teams, or likely playoff teams that are within arm's reach of that top 4. So if you believe in stats like that and always having them come through, then there you go. Your World Series winner is one of those teams. It doesn't work that way, of course. So use that at your own peril, of course.
I think to some extent with the Mariners, there's like a little bit of these past pitching studs have also hit injuries, a lot of them for the first time this year. So you had Gilbert coming back from injury. You have Kirby coming back from injury. Castillo is, I think, just losing his stuff. He's just getting older. The velo is dropping off earlier than it ever did for him. And Bryce Miller's coming back from injury. And each of them I've talked to over the course of the season has said, has kind of shook their head a little bit. Like Bryce Miller was like, I have fastball command. That's what I've always had, fastball command. I don't know where it went. And I'm like, yeah, probably something doesn't feel great. That's my theory about command is, something is just a little bit out of whack. Something, it could be a hammy, it could be a back or whatever it is. For him, it's the bone chips in your elbow, dude. But like, Kirby had like weird stuff when he came back, shoulder inflammation. He was gone for a while. And Gilbert has had his issues. So, there's still a chance that those 3 just come online and you're like, okay, good. Like, we're good. Like that's what happened. For a while they were out in the wilderness trying to find their way, and then they found it. We're good again.
Yeah. When you posted the story on The Athletic for the playoff teams for their rotation rankings, the Mariners came out 5th, and that was with Castillo in their top 3 instead of Wu. Like, I think there's a world in which they look at Brian Wu as a top 3 guy, and even though Castillo is the veteran,
I would have put Wu in, except that
down.
The projections still believe in Castillo.
Yeah.
So if I'd put Wu in, it would have hurt their projected ranking, So I left Castillo in the text. I said, you can put Wu in if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd like to put Wu in. I read it. I speed read it. I apologize.
I know. It's fine. I don't expect you to read everything. I was just saying Wu. Like, yeah, I would put Wu in too. I was on the radio in Seattle. We were just talking about this, and Castillo. I don't know what your role is right now, but like, he can't get through the 5th inning right now.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem to the point where in an AL only league, our friend Jeff Good, Low Guppy, has started sitting him on a team we co-manage in a 12-team AL only league. That's how bad things have been for Luis Castillo. Everybody starts in a 12-team AL only league because there's not enough pitching to go around, but it's been a long enough stretch where we've actually had the depth to go that route and sit him down. The other interesting thing that I noticed, though, about this Mariners team is like no one chasing them, as Britt said earlier, is really playing all that well, with maybe the exception of the Rays. And the Rays situation is so unusual. I leaned into it at the beginning of the year. I said, hey, baseball works in chaos. We're going to get the Rays in the American League Championship Series this year. Rays, Orioles, worst call I made.
Get it.
I could maybe get the Rays there if I get really, really lucky. But here's the full playoff picture right now. According to Fangraphs, to make the playoffs, Yankees and Red Sox at 99.8 and 97.2% respectively. Very, very likely safe going to get in. One of those teams, probably more likely Yankees than Red Sox, can still push the Blue Jays win the division, but all 3 are within reach of that. And you look at this Mariners team sitting right here, 73 and 67 entering play on Friday. I still can't believe the Rangers, with all the injuries they've dealt with, 1.5 back. The Rays, 2 back. Royals, 2 back. Guardians, 3.5 back. It's just not over. But the question I have for each of you is, if it's not going to be the Mariners, who is going to play well enough, who is going to take advantage of the opportunity and get that 6th and final playoff spot in the AL this year.
This is why I think it's the Mariners. I just am not super excited about anybody else below them. And again, like I said, if the Royals or the Rangers had gone on some like 3-week tear, we'd be talking about like, do they have a legit chance, right? But look at how these teams have all played. No one has played well enough. And really the reason this is a race is because, like you said, is it 14 of 20 that the Mariners have lost?
Yeah, they're 6-14 in their last 20. Yep.
That's how we're in this position we're in. Like
it's 10-2 in the last 12.
Yeah.
But look at a longer stretch for the Rays. Look at like the last month or so.
There's a lot of L's in there, dude.
Yeah, they're not playing with like their hair's on fire. Like nobody's all of a sudden. This is only happening because of what the Mariners are doing right now, which is playing very poorly. They played, which is crazy because they played so well coming out of the trade deadline for about 2 weeks there that we were like, whoa, here come the Mariners, right? And now it's just been a total 180 from that. So I don't think any of these teams swoop in. I think the Rangers just have too many injuries. Talk about a team that's been hot and cold. They've been remarkably streaky. Too many injuries. I don't think the Mariners overtake Houston because Houston had like 18 players on the IL at one point in time. They're now actually getting healthier. Getting Yordan Alvarez back certainly helps. They're getting a little bit better. They're playing better. It's their division to lose, right? What if they won 8 of 9 when you look at division titles for them? So, but I do think that Seattle gets in because I don't really believe in the Rays, the Royals. And also I think Seattle goes back home. They play 3 against Atlanta in Atlanta. Then they go back home, whereas we've just said they've played well. And their schedule's very easy. Now we do see, we can't really play the schedule game that much, right? Because like the Padres have a super easy schedule. We just saw them get swept by the Orioles, right? A team that's not 500. So that this time of year kind of gets overblown. However, if you play really well at home and you're playing a team like, mentioned the Rockies, like these are games that if you don't win, you don't deserve to go to the playoffs, right? If you can't beat Colorado Rockies in September in a home series, you don't deserve to be playing in October, So I do think it stacks up really well for Seattle here. So I don't have like a backup in this fight. I think this is Seattle's to lose.
I want to pick the Rays. But I'm looking at their rotation right now. Griffin Jax is the scheduled starter. Shane Baz has been mercurial to say the least. And then you've got Drew Rasmussen, who I think only has 15 innings left before the cap that they said he was capped at 150 innings this year.
Yeah.
So are they going to use all those 15 innings in the next 4 starts he's listed for at 4 innings a pop and then not have him for the playoffs? Like, what is the plan there? Then they had to go get Adrian Hauser because they ran out of arms, which is weird. And then Ryan Pepiot has been better recently, and the park has been playing a little bit less intense recently because the weather's different. But if you ask me, like, I like Drew Rasmussen and Ryan Pepiot, and Ian Seymour is intriguing, but this is not, like, for example, when I ran the numbers, this is not a top 10 starting rotation. And their lineup is decent, but when you look at their recent wins, there have been a lot of sort of 3-1s and 4-1s. And that requires really good pitching. And I just feel like, Hauser's going to give up some runs. Boz is going to have a blow up. He has been having those, Seymour's due for kind of the rookie regression at some point. So, I have a hard time. But if there is a team, it's the Rays, just because they're smart. They seem to get the most out of their guys. Junior Caminero is a legit stud in the middle of the lineup. Maybe Aranda comes back sometime soon. I haven't heard any updates except he might be swinging a bat somewhere. So like, I don't know. They can score some runs. They are fairly good defensively. Their flaws aren't huge, but I can't fully support them.
Yeah, it's sort of the forced, like, if I got to choose somebody, they're ticking enough boxes where I can convince myself that I'm making a good choice. But that's where I've been looking at this Mariners team for a long time, just saying there's a tier break there, and they're going to keep holding that lead because they have enough ways to beat you. Where even when the pitching's not going well, they can outslug their pitching. Their pitching will probably be fine, especially at home. 13 of 19 at home down the stretch, I think, is also a huge part of the schedule that does, in fact, matter for this Mariners team. So like I'm kind of like, if it's someone, it's probably the Rays, and that probably means it's someone else if it's anyone at all. That's just the way these predictions tend to go. But that's why we watch. That's why we tune in.
Though, too, right? Like if this happens, that means Seattle massively collapsed.
Yeah, and I just think they're you can't be too good to avoid a massive collapse because it can happen to anybody, but I would be very surprised if it didn't work out for them. I think it's actually a pretty well-built roster. I think it's one that's more dangerous than people give it credit for as an actual World Series contender if they can get to the playoffs. Like I think we know anyone that gets there can win, but I think they would be, relative to odds, more likely to win than the odds say. I actually think they line up really well with other playoff teams. But Mariners fans tearing their hair out, probably disagreeing vigorously right now. Part of what you were saying earlier, Britt, though, where it's like no one's gone out and taken it in some of the divisions. The Yankees and Red Sox are 18-12 in their last 30. The Jays are 17-13. Like they're all playing well enough. Like no one's leaving the door open. No one's closing the gap because they're all playing at a similarly high quality pace right now. And the Astros have been okay, 15-15 in their last 30.
Yeah.
Same as the Mariners, right? So that's why we had this kind of long window where the Jays have held serve, the Astros have held serve. We're just kind of waiting for something to break down in one of those races to give us more to get excited about.
The NL West, too. Neither of those teams have played particularly well in the Dodgers and the Padres. And so now you've kind of kept the door open for the Giants a little bit. I don't know how much of you guys are buying. Are you guys buying that at all or no? No.
No.
It's similar to the playoff games at Steinbrenner Field. By the way, who's not rooting for the Rays? Rob Manfred in the commissioner's office. Because imagine the nightmare. Logistically.
And they said recently they changed their mind that they would actually just play playoff games there.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's exactly what you want. As far as the NL West goes, so the McCullough nugget about homers, and it was under a heading about the Brewers not having enough power, which is like the Brewers never have enough power. And Christian Yelich is like, yeah, we've heard that. It's fine. The Padres have an alarming lack of power, like an actual amount of like missing power that I would look at and say maybe is a problem. They're 29th in the league in homers. I know the pitching because of injury, because of Dylan Cease's underperformance. That's another thing people are worried about, the starting pitching specifically. We've talked a lot about their bullpen depth, even with the loss of Jason Adam. They're built in a way where they can bullpen their way through some of that starting pitching trouble. Can they hit enough in the playoffs against top-level pitching to be a dangerous team, or is that an under-discussed aspect of the San Diego team, Britt?
Yeah, well, they can hit. They put the ball in play. They just can't hit home runs. I think the problem there, and you're seeing it over this stretch where they haven't been very good, two things have happened. One, if they go down a couple runs, it feels insurmountable, right? Because if you're a team that doesn't hit a lot of home runs, you got to do it the old-fashioned way, right? You got to hit balls in the gap. You got to get errors. You got to get base on balls. So much more has to happen than a couple guys get on and someone hits it out of the ballpark, right? Those teams are a lot more dangerous in terms of coming back from 3, 4, 5-run deficits. It feels like with the Padres, you go up 4 or 5 runs, the game's essentially over. And they're not taking a lead into the 5th inning. We could talk about how great their bullpen is all day. If the bullpen doesn't have the lead, then they can't really be a game changer, right? If they're down 3 runs in the 5th inning, you can parade out all these arms you want. If the offense isn't going to step up and make up that offense, then it doesn't matter if the bullpen is really good and doesn't allow any runs. So I think there is a little bit of a concern. It's also, to me, a little, I wouldn't have known that, Derek, if you hadn't said it. I knew they weren't a big home run team, but when you look at some of the stars that are still on that team, you're like, how are they this bad at that? You know what I mean? And obviously some of the injuries, Bogarts and some of the things that they've had to deal with, that doesn't help either. But where did all the power go is really what I would like to know. Like, where is it? Where did it go? Do you have to be a team that either doesn't strike out, puts the ball in play a lot? Obviously they have a rise. Can you be both? Saying, so I really would like to hear what kind of.
Yeah, no, this is just a segue. This is just a perfect segue. Because I was like, yes, they have made a bet on making contact, but there are different ways to do this. So there are 3 teams right now that have better than a 20% strikeout rate in your mind right now. see if you can. I think you can get one of them. Toronto is is the one with the best strikeout rate.
Milwaukee up there?
No,
close, but no.
The third one is the Royals. The Royals. Milwaukee is pretty close with a 20.4, but you can even lump them in. But if you really want to compare teams that are really close to each other, Toronto has 173 homers along with the 17.6% strikeout rate.
It could beat you
the Padres have an 18.8% strikeout rate and 122 homers.
Yeah. So and there's a build component to that where with Luis Arias, you go in knowing you're lowering your team K rate.
But there's 50 homers missing.
But there's
Luis Arias is like just 15 homers missing.
Right.
But they punted catcher this year. Most teams have catchers that can pop 15. Like they don't have that.
Even if you like Fermin defensively, he's not a big pop guy.
Bogarts hit 10 before he got hurt. Jackson Merrill hasn't been the same guy, and Tatis only has 19 in 609 plate appearances.
That's the other aha for me is if you look at the batted ball stats, the Padres are last in pull and last in pull air. And if you look at Tatis and Machado and Merrill, all three of them are pulling the ball at the lowest amount they've ever pulled it. And
there's the missing homers.
I really do think so. I hate to be a guy who's like, oh, pull hair is everything. And I know, and I understand when hitting coaches say, oh, if you go for the pull hair, then you whiff a lot and you're not your best hitter or whatever. I would tell those three guys, hey, can you go for some pull hair? I'd give each of them 2 or 3 points of strikeout rate, to get them back to their previous power levels. And I wrote about how Tatis is letting the ball travel too much. In the last couple of weeks, Tatis has actually started to go get the ball out in front again. And he just hit a 400-foot homer the other day. So I do think that it's in them. And if you look at Manny Machado's career, he does sort of alternate batting average times with power times. Like you see him kind of serving the ball to the opposite field and be like, I'm going to hit 280, he's a 300 this year again. But then there are also the times when he goes tank, it's pull side. Like when he hits those 450-foot homers, they're pull side. So I would, if I was those guys, I'd be like, hey, this has been great and all. And I love, they have a real old school hitting coach that's like, you have to go the opposite way. You have to go, oppo power alley. You want to go up the middle, blah, blah, blah. Use the big part of the field, all that stuff. I get it. I don't want them to just start corkscrewing themselves in the ground. But each three of those guys has been better in the past when they hit for more power. So I think each three of those guys needs to just be like, you know what? Enough of this crap. I'm going for it. I'm going to hit some homers.
It's interesting, though, because contact is in vogue. The Tigers are a team that puts the ball in play a lot, too. They've been really good. And I think Toronto has that perfect mix where they got the boppers. You got the Vladdies, and you've got the guys who are not going up there looking for singles.
You also have Varsho, who's going up there trying to hit a homer every time.
And George Springer has been resurgent for Toronto.
Springer's year has just been ridiculous. Like,
I just
blown away how good
But then they have like Ernie Clement, who is going to get on base however he can, right? Like, so I think that they
the Padres went full into this as opposed to
like how can you best serve us, right? Like we don't need Jake Cronenworth, we just need you to get on base. We don't need you to hit 50 home runs. Tatis, Manny,
we need homers from you guys.
We need home runs, right? Like there needs to be a little bit more of a balance, I think.
Yeah.
Not striking out more is a great trend. I hope that the league goes more into that. Let's keep strikeouts low.
This is the first year that strikeout rate has gone down.
Right. So it's really more exciting to watch as a fan and to watch these faster paced teams like Detroit, like Toronto, because now you're in a copycat league. You're going to see people try to copy those styles. But you're right. There are certain teams, and the Padres are one of them, with so many stars that you're like, where's the power? Why isn't there more power? You don't have to be a top 5, but if they were middle of the pack, we probably wouldn't even be concerned. They were middle of the pack, they may have a couple more wins.
It's like they hit the trifecta of a few things going wrong, though. Like their core got expensive. They had some money trouble this offseason, so they couldn't add. They did make moves at the deadline. Ramon Laureano might prove to be a really good move. Yeah. Ryan O'Hearn's a nice addition. So the team they've been for the bulk of the year versus the team they've been in the last 5 weeks from a power perspective is also different. They're not completely devoid of it, but it's just been it was a surprising number to see. Like they were that low in that category. But Bogart's
last 30 days,
not a power
isolated
guy
slugging,
anymore.
20th.
Yeah, so like not awful, but still like relatively speaking in the playoff field, that's going to be a relative weakness for this team that I think had been previously overlooked, even with some of those upgrades. I think they're good. They could still be dangerous, but I just had a different perception of the Padres than what the reality has revealed to us. One story that we didn't squeeze in up top, we'll squeeze in now, and then I know Britt's got to jump off before we get to our weekend waiver preview. The Yankees in that game against the Astros on Thursday, Aaron Boone asked the umpires to check out Taylor Trammell's bat, and it was confiscated. I thought this was pretty weird, and I thought just watching the body language of the situation, Taylor Trammell had the look of a person who was genuinely like, there's nothing going on with my bat. What are you guys worried about? And he talked about it after the game. It's a really worn bat that he's had for a long time. So that's part of it maybe too, is that just some of the coloration on the bat has changed. But what happened here?
Well, you've got, this is a Jed Lowry bat for the major leagues that I got from Keenan Long over at Long Ball Labs.
A gamer.
This is an actual gamer here. It has the Long Ball Labs sticker on the bottom, and we'll talk to Jed about it next week. But I just wanted to bring this out because so this is, I think, what we're talking about here. This is the label. This is the barrel, and we've been swinging this with a lot of people, locally, and everybody swings it and goes, "Wow, there's so much weight in the barrel." So this is what this is about. Is like I think that they're saying. I read in the story shaving. So they think that this is discolored here on his bat because he's been shaving this. And why would you do that? It's the same idea as the torpedo, which is the torpedo shaves some off here. If you could shave off some here, what you're doing is you're concentrating more of the weight in the barrel by a percentage of the entire weight. Now, is it illegal? You have the rule. The rule is so...
the rule's
boring.
Ridiculous. You might remember we read this at the time that the torpedo bats were a big deal at the beginning of the season.
I do.
But the specifics of Major League's bat rules are ridiculous. And of course, my iPad is like loading. Yeah. Here we go. Rule 302A states bats used in Major League games must be a smooth, round stick, not more than 2.61 inches in diameter at the thickest part. Down there. Yeah. Yep. And not more than 42 inches in length.
And for the record, nobody swings 42s anymore. This is the 33-31 or 33.5-31. So I think that one of the key words there is cylindrical because I guess theoretically, if it's just about 2.16 here and the length, you could shave this all the way down so that you basically just had a barrel on a stick.
Dude, it would just be ridiculous. I mean, it'd be a more ridiculous looking torpedo-ish concept, but
I guess
don't know.
One thing it would hurt you with was like you'd never get a squib hit.
Yeah, you're in trouble if you get one
all
down.
Homers. You'd probably break a lot of them too, as you pointed out.
Yeah,
that the ball hits here and it's just like a little thin stick.
I'm going to guess that the reason they would do it that you outlined has been offset by the fact that no one's like it breaks. Yes, like there's otherwise they would try.
But you could do a smaller version of that where you shave here. Now, what I'm saying is it's unclear if that would be illegal. Like if the torpedo bat is fine and you're shaving a little bit off here.
Right.
Is it illegal because you're not allowed to do stuff after the manufacturer gives it to you? I don't know if that's true. But you put pine tar on, you put like there's other things you do like after people put different handles on it and stuff. Like what? Like the hockey puck on the bottom that some people do. Like the Patrick Bailey has like a hockey puck on the bottom there. Is the manufacturer giving that to you, or are you attaching that afterwards? So there's nothing in that rule that we're reading either. Like it must not be effed with after manufacturer has been given, it's hard to speak in rule language, but you know what I mean? Like there's nothing in the rule about not shaving here, but that's what I think that's what they were saying is he was basically shaving this to make it more powerful.
That timing was weird for me.
Aaron Boone said,
Aaron Boone said that they had thought earlier that it was illegal. And I believe I think he said in the Athletic story, the Athletic has a great detailed story on this if you're curious for more specific details. Brandon Cuddy and Chandler Rome that were there on the scene. But like he said he talked to an MLB official like earlier in the day. They also thought it was illegal. So why are we waiting until the 9th inning to bring this up?
End of the series, yeah. Gamesmanship. Yeah, there's a situation, couple runners on base against Bednar.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
Because it looked like in an 8-4 game, maybe the score's going to change. You know what would really help? Let's throw out the illegal bat theory. Like, that's what this looked like. I don't doubt that Aaron Boone thought it was illegal. Like he said, he had already mentioned it. But like, it was like a let's keep this chip in my pocket kind of thing, right? Wasn't it weird?
So, yeah. If they noticed it previously and didn't challenge it before, they must not have been that worried about the implications of that bat. If it were, I don't know. None of this to me felt like it was a legitimate, like, oh, there's actually something wrong with the bat. Again, gut reaction from me from thousands of miles away. There's nothing going on with Taylor Trammell performance-wise where he's on some insane heater where we're all like, well, what's going on with Taylor Trammell? Like, there's nothing there. It's so weird. It makes Aaron Boone look kind of ridiculous, but we'll see what the results turn up. We'll see if they're able to have some kind of follow-up that indicates that bat was in fact illegal. But I don't know, man. Like that seemed like a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, this is managers trying to, like, again, play chess. Remember the Manny Machado saga last year in the playoffs? And Dave Roberts said a bunch of words to his team. Like the good managers, I think, find ways to use these like tiny things to change the game's momentum. Like, oh, Houston might be taking the lead. Let's pull that out that we had earlier that we thought, maybe this bat was illegal, but let's not say anything if we're going to win the game. But if it looks like we're going to lose the game, let's throw this in there, right? Remember a few years ago, Buck Showalter in the playoffs goes out, right? Didn't they check somebody's glove? Wasn't there some issue as well?
There's always, yeah. There's
something that people don't understand about the manager role, right? The gamesmanship involved a lot of times in the really smart managers and strategy and like what to say when, how to break up the momentum when it feels like things are snowballing maybe one way. It's like an underrated game within the game part of baseball. Petty part of baseball.
You're out of mound visits, so you want to buy the guy on the mound like 3 to 4 minutes.
I'm trying to remember the timing of the Joe Musgrove ear incident too.
Yes.
The shiny ears.
Yes.
Shiny ears, yes. Yes.
Wait, wasn't that Buck? Wasn't that Buck with the ears?
That was Buck, yeah.
Okay. The Trammell quote from the story. I've had it for a long time. Usually take BP with it. Use it in games. Used it at AAA. Use it every time. The only thing, I just don't have a gloss finish on my bat. It's matte. Paint wears down. That's what happens. End quote. That was his explanation. I'm like, well, it's good enough for me. We'll see if the investigation turns up anything else. I'm not expecting it to, I guess, if you haven't noticed by now.
Guys, somebody gets paid to look into this as like a professional investigation.
Yeah.
So you're out there with a measuring tape, like checking everything out, and just I don't know. Yeah, the forensics of bat investigation.
Yeah,
could be a fun job, I guess. All right, we're gonna get to some waiver talk here in just a few minutes. Britt, glad to have you back again this week. Look forward to catching up with you again here down the stretch.
All right, guys, thanks for having me.
All right, let's look ahead to some waiver-related considerations for this weekend. Yet another Mets starter coming up this weekend to debut. It's going to be Brandon Sproat going Sunday against the Reds. You and Trevor talked about how the Mets might be really shaking up the order of things with that pitching group come playoff time, and Sproat could be yet another wild card in the mix. Now, beyond Sunday, his role is up in the air as far as how exactly he might continue to be utilized, but after a slow start at AAA, Sproat has actually turned his season around in a big way. And I think when we entered this season, we probably looked at Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, and Brandon Sproat in a way where we thought Sproat was going to be the one up making the most impact this year, even if he doesn't necessarily have the highest ceiling of that trio.
He's very much like McLean. And to begin the season, he was more 93, 94. And so his stuff numbers for the full season are not quite as good as McLean's. McLean's in AAA were, top 3 or whatever. They were the best of anybody who wasn't a rehabber at some point, And Sproats have been more, just sort of like, okay. I did look, though, and Sam Dykstra over at MLB.com pointed out that he's been 97 plus on the fastball since late June. And eyeballing his stuff since late June, what had been sort of an 80 stuff plus 4-seam fastball has now become more of a, it was like an 85. Now it's a 95. And in his last few starts, 96, 97 stuff plus on the four seam. And the sinker, which had been, a little bit better, but still like around a 90 of stuff plus on the sinker recently has become a 105 to even 110 stuff plus sinker. So I think he's just become more McClain-like, over time. I think that he has a little bit better command, actually, than McClain. We've seen McClain, get in some trouble against lefties in particular and walk some guys and just sort of outstuff his way anyway. Sproat doesn't have the number one spin rate curveball in baseball like McClain does. But he has a really good sweeper. He's a really good sweeper sinker guy that's added the four seam and added, enough around it that I think he's going to be good. But I actually don't think that he'll change people's minds about what the playoff rotation will be, or if there are 7 starters on the Mets going down the stretch and they're going to a 6-man rotation. I kind of think that Sproat is not going to be one of them. Like if it's Sproat versus Tyler McGill, I'm taking Tyler McGill.
A little more of a helps them get through September guy than a featured in October guy. Still valuable in the sense, but just not quite on the same level as the last 2 prospects they brought up.
I think so. And then also, if you look at how dependent on velocity that stuff plus number is, especially for his fastballs, I think you're like, we really want you to be sitting 97, 98. And it's easier for you to do that for us in 2 inning stints than it is for you to come up here to the big leagues and do 5 and 6 innings. So you don't want to piggyback Sproat and McClain. They're too similar. But I've seen a lot of evidence that, like a good piggybacking scheme could work for the Mets. And we talked about that a little bit with Trevor yesterday.
Yeah, it's definitely some options there for the Mets, and they'll probably be a little bit creative given some of the innings workloads they have guys up against, given that they've got a mix of veterans and young pitchers there. Tyler Wells came back. We didn't really talk about it earlier in the week, but yet another piece that could be important for the Orioles in 2026. He has a streaming opportunity at the very least. Home against the Pirates is the matchup next week. And, what are your thoughts on Wells coming back from his latest major injury?
Giddy app. I thought it looked pretty good, and there's an interesting question about whether or not that cutter is a slider or not. But I think it was decent command. The velo was pretty good at 93. I think he's matchup dependent. So I do care that the matchup is the Pirates. I wouldn't throw him against the Yankees right now. But in that situation, I'm in.
Yeah, playable and pretty widely available, especially in leagues in which he wasn't drafted. He might be first crack at him this weekend, but even in leagues where you could make moves for anybody, I think he kind of came back relatively under the radar here. Anybody else that you see on the pitching side that's caught your eye so far this week that you might be bidding on this weekend? There are some 2-start pitchers, a few guys we've talked about in recent weeks. Luis Morales, his roster rates keep going up. He's got home against Boston and home against the Reds, so it's not easy, but that might be of interest in some shallow leagues if you're looking for a little bit of volume. Luis
I'll call
Garcia's
that a major test, actually, myself.
Big test. Big test for Luis Morales. So, yeah, be careful if your ratios can still be dinged up in a meaningful sort of way. But I think the stuff's pretty electric. But Luis Garcia goes again. This next turn from Garcia on the road at Atlanta. Kind of similar question to Wells. What were your impressions of Garcia in that first start back from Tommy John?
Not as good. The velo didn't come back with him, and I can see why they slow walked his recovery. I just don't know if because if you remember Luis Garcia, he was pretty good, and then he was lights out, and that was when he was 93, 94. This was more like 91, and I think that's meaningful. That's going to change a lot of things, especially since he's kind of a cutter guy, and if he's he throws everything hard, but it's 91. That's not really hard. So, I don't know that I'm rushing to pick that one up. I have him, like I said, in a lot of draft and holds because I thought, it's a late round pick. And so I will be playing him, but I won't be super happy about it.
Looking real deep, if you are scrambling for starters, this is going to be 15 teams and deeper. Caden Dana has a two-step. This season's been brutal for him at AAA, but it's AAA Salt Lake. I mean, look what he did in the minors prior to having to pitch in the PCL. Still really young for the level this year, too. Home against the Twins, road against Seattle. Again, deeper leagues only, but I'm actually at least putting him on the bottom of my contingency bid list,
and
despite the tough results.
There's also some of you out there who don't actually care anymore about ERA and WHIP and are just like,
there's that too.
I need just the 2-start guys, and hopefully they get me some wins. He has a good slider, and I think he really, my comp for him is kind of Detmers. It's just good slider, okay velo. Like, what are you doing otherwise? Like, how are you going to put this all together? And I don't know if I have the confidence for the Angels to do that, to be the team to do that, but.
And even with Detmers, at times when he looked really good, it was a bumpy ride, a lot of inconsistency along the way. So maybe that's a good way to set fair expectations for Dana, but does have that 2-start week if you're trying to find some help on that front. Simeon Woods Richardson's the other name that's bouncing around in similar situations at the Angels and home against the D-backs is the 2-step for SWR.
I don't know exactly what the D-backs are right now as an offense. Because I would have said, like, for so long, I was like, they're sneaky bad. Like, this next sneaky bad matchup. Like, sneaky good. Like, they were, like, leading in runs at some point.
They led the league in runs last year. And
yeah.
You're like, well,
and I was always, like, shaking my head, being like, what? Like, how? And even this year, you're like, okay, so avoid the Diamondbacks. Then they trade away 2 of their guys, so I wanted to look recently, and they're basically a league average offense now. Which means that they're not necessarily someone you want to target. It's not. They could go off on SWR, and SWR is mercurial. So if you're at all, watching your numbers, I'm not doing that one. I'd rather almost take Michael McGreevy. I think he's at the Giants. I think he'll go 6. I think he could get the win. And he's way safer. So sometimes you're like, oh, you're so enamored with the 2-start. And if you're using the Razzball thing, they love that all the 2-starters are in the top 100, and I get it. It is a lot of potential value, but if you're at all watching your ERA and WHIP, like, there's a lot of potential downside to that too.
Yeah. I was wondering where the D-backs rank in runs scored this year. They're still 6th, man. And I know they traded some guys away with Naylor and Suarez, but
the last 30 is not quite as good, though.
Not quite as good. Different team now. I mean, kind of like the San Diego thing, where they go from, San Diego's homer problem goes from bad to awful to not terrible.
14th in WRC plus.
It's not a cakewalk. I think your perception of that Diamondbacks lineup might be a little worse. Still scoring runs. Well, Jordan Lawler's getting a chance finally too, which I guess the other
that makes you happy.
The position player question, I guess, would be if you're looking at Lawler versus Sal Stewart, who do you actually like better of those 2 guys for the final 3+ weeks?
Lawler gets more of a look. I think if you're the Diamondbacks, you're like, you know what, we've jerked this guy around, dude. Let's let him play. Whereas Sal Stewart, the Reds are, at least close enough and, care enough right now about everyday wins that they are going to mix and match and try to, and it's Tito, I feel like Tito is the kind of guy who will be like, whatever small little edge I can give with this lineup versus this lineup, I'm going to take it. So, I take that. Carter Jensen is up with the Royals. I am interested because, like the Reds, I think the Royals are still in it. But, they traded Fermin away, and they always want to play Sal Perez at DH some. So, to me, there's a fair amount of opportunity here. He does look a little bit more like a traditional catcher, where he's going to walk, strike out, hit homers, have a bad batting average. A little bit intriguing that he has stolen double-digit steals at most levels going back for a while. So maybe he's a guy who will still add a handful of steals to the traditional 220 homer hitting catcher that there seem to be a ton of.
Yeah, I looked at Jansen having one start since roster expansion earlier in the week and saw maybe more of like a keeper dynasty angle there, where if he wasn't already rostered and you're looking ahead to next year in a deep league, you got to start 2 catchers probably in a league like that. Get him on the roster cheap now, have him as a keeper potentially. That seemed like maybe the best use case, but maybe the playing time ticks up over the weekend. That's at least worth keeping an eye on, right? One series, especially your first series in the big leagues, isn't always indicative of how your team's going to use you in the short term. Some of it's just getting fully up to speed with the new people around you.
He's got a lot of meetings. He has to have meetings.
Especially if he's actually going to catch. Like, you want him to be fully prepared for those opportunities. So watch the playing time this weekend just to see if it ticks up compared to the limited usage in that first little run. Sal Stewart started 2 of 3, by the way, for the Reds, just for the sake of like, hey, what was going on? All 3 of those games were against righties, and he started at first base in both. It was Spencer Steer playing first base in the game that Stewart did not play.
And what did Steer do otherwise? Did Steer only start 1?
Steer only started that game. He didn't start the other 2 days because they played
what
Lux
have they
and
done
Hayes.
To my beautiful boy? What have they done?
Austin Hayes and Gavin Lux sharing left field and DH, and Noelvi Marte, who was the subject of a Discord question that we'll probably get to on Monday, continues to lock down right field and hit second on this team. Super safe playing time and looking like the guy he was pre-suspension.
But just to be clear, there is an injury note for Spencer Steer for the 2 days he missed.
So that's where the weekend lineups should help guide that bidding and maybe pull you back down to earth a little bit on the usage for Sal Stewart. Still think he's a big part of their plan though in 2026.
There's some interesting in case you missed it stuff here.
What do you got?
Left some. I mean, Mike Trout had a 2-game absence due to a skin infection. I am white knuckling every Mike Trout update because I traded for Mike Trout in the Auto New League I've never won, where I have the best team so far, and they were going into the playoffs, and I suddenly my season depends on Mike Trout playing the rest of the season healthy.
That's a great way to put yourself in a position in September.
Skin infection,
scared and disappointed.
Good news, I guess.
Yeah, it's not a shoulder, not a knee. Sure, yeah.
I mean, Trevor McGill threw a bullpen session, so it seems like he was right about his own self-prognosis that, he's going to be back soon.
Yep, I think September 16th is the day he's eligible to be activated. They still think he's on track for that, so a little over 10 days from now.
There is some agita in Dodger world. Shohei, the good news is just it seems like it was a cold or congestion or something and should be pitching Monday against the Angels. But the bad news is that Will Smith has a hand injury. And, then again, the good news on the other side is I still kind of like Dalton Rushing. And the catcher in yesterday's game was Dalton Rushing. So I think he might get more playing time.
Yeah, it could be a little 2-catcher league option for you if you're looking for some help down the stretch. But good to see Trout back out there right away. Glad that the Shohei thing was just a minor illness and not something that was going to be more problematic for them. Dodgers got swept by the Pirates this week. Is this real life?
I saw that. Yeah, well, Braxton Ashcraft pitched well.
Skeens got him.
They got Skeens, yeah.
Yeah, I think when you catch
it's a little bit like the playoff rotation thing we showed. It's like if you get the Pirates' big 3, then hey.
I think this is also a good spoiler list, though. Like, if you're like, okay, there's non-playoff
Reds.
teams on here. What teams do you really not want to see on the schedule if you're
Pirates
jockeying
and Reds,
for playoff
maybe.
position? Yeah. Those would be teams
Hunter
that can just come in and shut you down with their pitching.
Yeah.
That's the way I'd look at it anyway. But, all right. I think we made it. My back is still holding up, even though I'm recording from a dining room chair using a fold-out tray table. I will prepare better the next time I'm on the road to record.
Your arm is tired?
Yeah. If I go on the IL with like a wrist injury from holding the microphone for the last hour, you'll know.
Discord hype, tell me what to do with this bat. I'm thinking about letting the kids swing with it some, but if they break it, that seems like I went too far. So should I get Jed to sign it and then it becomes a collectible? But I don't know. Like it seems like I should just use it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
My vote would be use it because I'm guessing since we know Jed, you could probably get another one.
Yeah.
I wanted to get a wood bat and just kind of go learn how to hit with it, and I'm sure it is.
It feels great.
It probably feels really good. It's probably also a way if you overdo it to make yourself very sore. So you probably have to ease into it a little bit. But I thought it'd be a fun thing to start getting in the cage with a wood bat and just seeing,
And I thought I could
can
make
I eventually
it
hit?
a sort of a reward for somebody who does something in practice.
Okay.
They get to swing a few times with it.
Swing a big leaguer bat. I like
reward.
it.
Yeah.
I think that's the clubhouse leader. That's the best use of it. Because I think
better than I use
priceless
it as my
piece of,
fungo.
not a priceless piece of baseball history, but it's a cool thing that your players should get excited about. And I think that's the way to do it. But all right, you can find us on Blue Sky. I'm DVR.bsky.social. Eno is Saris.bsky.social. Britt is BrittGiroli.bsky.social. Thanks to our producer Brian Smith for putting this episode together. Thanks to my wife for bringing me some coffee while I was recording today too. That was greatly appreciated. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Monday.
Thanks for listening.